Today, we are delighted to have with us Mr. Pankaj Joshi, Principal of Academic World School, Bemitra, Chhattisgarh. Mr. Joshi is a passionate educator and a mentor who has dedicated his career to shaping young minds and fostering academic excellence. Our topic today is navigating the influence of peer groups in academics, helping teens choose positive academic influence. Peer group has a significant impact on teenagers, shaping their attitude, behavior, and academic performance. In this discussion, Mr. Joshi will help us understand the dynamics of peer influence, how it affects academics, and what parents and school can do to guide teens towards positive relationships that enhance their learning. Welcome, Mr. Pankaj Joshi.
Thank you, Shaju.
Great. Sir, would request if you can, briefly, uh, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Shaju. You've already introduced my name and what I'm doing right now. Just to give you a little background, I've
Mhm.
been an educator for about 2.5 decades now, and I've taught at the Doon School in Dehradun for about 24 years, and then I'm heading this school currently over here, which is for about 2+ years now. So it's been a life which is full of interactions, particularly with youngsters, young boys and girls,
Mhm.
mostly in their adolescent, stage. And I'm very happy to share my experience with you and all the viewers today. So
Right.
that's on the academic front. But
Mhm.
it's not only schools. I've also been a great proponent of outdoor education, and myself, I have done a lot for that. And I've you know experienced education outdoors myself, and also given education outdoors in the sense that I am I have led expeditions, mountaineering expeditions to various parts of the world,
Wow.
and along with young boys, I have seen how education in the outdoors can really lead to not only to learning but also to navigate peer pressure, which is the topic for today. So I guess
Right.
that's enough of an introduction, and more of it we'll come to know about each other as we move in the
Right.
conversation, right?
Right, sir. Right, sir. So let's start with understanding peer influence. So, sir, in your experience, how do peer groups influence a teenager's academic performance, both positively and negatively?
See, that's quite interesting because we are humans, and human beings, they live in groups, which
Right.
is now given the name of peers, right? And when we are living in groups as humans, there is going to be an impact. So saying that there will be no peer impact, there will be absolutely zero peer impact, it's something which is not going to happen, and that's not we want it to be, because being social animals, we want our kids, particularly youngsters and adolescents, we want them to experience the impact of peer
Peer
groups.
groups.
But at the
Right.
same time, we also want them to understand and navigate, as you said. I
Mhm.
mean, I like that word, to navigate through peer pressure, because we don't want
Right.
them to resist peer pressure, because that's not going to be a very positive
Happen.
thing. It's better to, uh, and I really commend you for this choice of this word, navigate, because
Mhm.
navigation requires skills and tools, and that's what we need to give our youngsters.
Right.
So peer pressure or peer impact or peer influence, whatever we may call it, it is going to be there, it is there, and it will always be there.
Right.
As schools and as parents, we need to understand this, because I
Right.
know of certain parents and schools
Mhm.
which tell youngsters not to be friends with a certain boy or a girl, not to,
Okay.
so that's not one of the most positive things to say. I think we need to teach them uh, how to make choices, but that I think I'll talk about later. One of the
Right.
impacts, as you said, the question is about the impact of peer pressure, or, or peer group, I would say.
Mhm.
One of the impacts of that is that it affects the decision making of an individual. That
Okay.
decision making could be in academics, that decision making could be in making personal choices.
Mhm.
Now, what we need to tell our youngsters today is that when we are making these choices, the decisions that we make have to be informed decisions. And
Right.
the individual has to make the decision. So that the responsibility of making the decision and the accountability of that decision lies in that individual. However, if the individual is moving around in peer groups, the positive impact of these peer groups is that when he's talking about his situation to various friends, be it boys or girls of different ages or the same age, the
Right.
individual gets to learn and know the different perspectives,
That's
and
right.
comes to know various solutions that can be to that particular situation. So this
Hmm.
enhances his own thought process and
Right.
enriches his own understanding of the problem. And when he analyzes these various perspectives that he understands from the peer group, and the decision that he makes after this is not only an informed decision, but the
Hmm.
decision is actually enriched by the experiences of others who sometimes are of his or her own age, or sometimes
Right.
maybe of a different age. So that's one of the most positive impacts
Right.
that peer groups make on an individual. However, there are certain negative impacts also, because
Right.
sometimes what happens in peer groups is that peer groups, they get together, and they have a negative impact in the sense that some people in the peer group, they make gangs and groups, and they try to impact uh, that individual's whole thought process. And this is where the individual has to be smart enough to differentiate between what is the I wouldn't say difference between right and wrong, because that is a very relative term. But I would
Hmm.
say the individual needs to understand how to differentiate between what is the need of the hour, what he
Hmm.
has to pick, he or she has to pick, and what need not be touched at this point of time. Because what need not be touched at this point of time is not that that particular thought may be completely useless, but it may not be of use at that point of time. So the
Right.
decision making has to be done by the individual, of course.
Right.
But the skill lies in analyzing what I have learned. So I
Hmm.
learn from various sources, which may be in general terms, which may be to my liking, which may be to my aligning of thoughts, and which may
Hmm.
not be to my aligning of thoughts and to my aligning. And
Right.
an analysis and synthesis of all
Hmm.
these help me in taking the decision. And of course, it has an impact, both, as I said, positively, and impact and negatively, on what
Right.
decision I'm going to take and what is going to be the future course of action in whatever situation that that particular adolescent individual is. So I hope
Right.
that answers your question.
Yes, to a great extent. So we are saying both positive and negative impact is there, right? Positive
Yes.
is okay, very good, good to go. So, what are some of the signs that a teen may be experiencing negative peer pressure affecting their studies to start with?
One of the biggest sign that I have seen in my practice as an educator, when there are negative impacts, one of the biggest signs is that the particular individual, if he's being negatively impacted by the peer
To
groups,
peer, right?
first let us understand what is negative impact. Negative impact particularly means that as an individual, if I'm the adolescent, I understand what needs to be done,
Hmm.
and I understand what is the need of the hour, but there are some forces in my environment which are, withholding me from taking that particular decision. That's what a negative impact is. So
Okay,
what happens is, as a result of this, what happens is I start either I will start resisting that. That's one way of doing it,
right,
and I may feel bad about resisting my own peer group, because that may actually lead to bad relations with my peer groups, and obviously I do not want to have a bad relation with my peer group.
right.
So that's one thing. Another impact of this is that I just simply comply to what they are saying. I do not,
Blindly.
I do not really take forward the route which I want to take. And as
Hmm.
a result of this, it is going to have an impact on my own thought process, which will be a very negative impact. And it may have a psychological impact. And I may start isolating myself, because I no longer identify with the thought process of the peer group, which is having a negative impact on me. And
Right.
so one of the most prominent signs of negative impact of peer groups is that the individual starts isolating himself or herself from the peer group. Now, this is the
Hmm.
point where it is for the adults, be it
Hmm.
teachers or be it parents, it is for the adults to actually identify these signals and these kind of signs, and
Hmm.
see where and when that individual needs help. Because it's not really easy for teachers also to provide help at this point of time, because many a times such individuals, they simply resist not only the peer group, but they also resist the individuals who try to provide help to them. So this really requires a very mature and individual handling. So
Right.
these are some of the signs that other signs could be that the person who is being negatively impacted simply will burst,
Mm-hmm.
will show anger, may not be, will go down in academics
Mm-hmm.
suddenly. And,
Right.
all these kind of thoughts. And they are pretty visible. Other severe thoughts at time may be that the person will lose interest in himself or herself.
Okay.
His dressing sense would go negative.
Mm-hmm.
Will not, if it's a grown up adolescent, will stop shaving,
Mm-hmm.
will have long hair.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on what the situation is.
So self confidence may get, had.
Exactly. Self-confidence gets low, and
Mm-hmm.
the person may become aggressive. The
Right.
person may be, start getting angry very easily.
Hmm. So, sir, how can a teen, I mean, is a formula or tips which you can give in terms of, how can teens identify and align themselves with peers who inspire and support their academic growth, overall growth, as an individual?
See, teens obviously need to be supported, right? Teens do not have that much experience of life, and
Mhm.
teens need to be supported. So, what role, the main people who can play the role over here is the schools, the educators
Mhm.
in the schools, and the parents. And I always say that the life of a teen particularly is a triangle, and the three
Mhm.
angles of the triangle are the parents, the educators in school, and the teen himself. So there,
Okay.
all these are connected. And
Mhm.
schools have a much larger role to play in this. Schools need to bring parents on board, need
Okay.
to discuss issues with them very regularly,
Mhm.
and need to find solutions to all these problems. Now, certain points we need to do is, the first thing is that we need to bring that teen on board, and
Mhm.
to sit with that teen and really identify that there is a problem. Because a problem can only be solved when people involved in it, they actually recognize that there's a problem. Because most of the
Right.
times, when there is a problem, people actually run away from the problem. So we have to
Right.
first identify with the teen, that particular boy or a girl, that there is a problem. So once
Mhm.
that problem is identified, we need to see whether the problem is that big. Because
Mhm.
most of the times issues between teens, and I'm saying this with out of experience, that most of the
Mhm.
times issues that are there with teens can actually be solved sitting with that group, talking about things, and identifying what the issues are. Because most of the times these issues are very mundane, and
Right.
because the individuals do not have that kind of life experience, so these mundane
Mhm.
issues become really big. So we need to
Mhm.
sit with them, and we need to tell them, we need to, really identify that the issues that they're talking about are not really very big
Mhm.
issues. Because
Right. Right. Right.
they may be actually teasing a teen about his or her sense of dressing. They may be teasing the teen about his or her sense of, the way they speak a certain word, the way they pronounce a certain word. But all these
Mhm.
things really have a negative impact on academics, because
On.
teens being teens, they think a lot.
Right.
There is, teens, what happens is they really work towards image building, and that happens with, particularly in situations where the school is a co-educational school. There's a lot of image building that happens between
Very true.
the two sexes that are studying in the school.
Right.
So we need to identify this with them, sit down with them, and teach them that this is something that our generation has also undergone. So
Right.
there's nothing new that they are undergoing. So we have to
Mhm.
create a buy-in for this.
Right. Right. I
The
think,
yeah,
yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
because one of the things which is different from our generation and the current generation is that they are a lot open to and exposed to social media. And social
Correct.
media really, most of the times, social media unfortunately plays a very negative role. Because if you simply go through the reels or the stories that
Hmm.
come on our accounts every
Feeds.
day, most of them talk about negative things.
Right.
So
right.
that has a very negative impact on the person who's undergoing this. And
Mhm.
at the same time, schools need to develop some programs where, these things can be taken at a larger scale, and
Right.
both parent and student education can be done, so that they really understand these things, that uh, the individual's behavior affects the behavior of the peer group, which in again
Mhm.
affects the behavior of selective peers, resulting in
Right.
negative impact on various, not only behaviors but also the academic output that comes out of it. Because if behavior
Correct.
is being affected negatively, it will automatically be impacting the academics also.
Correct. Correct. So my next question you've already covered. The question is like the role of communication and trust play in helping parents and educators. Unless they connect, they understand, sit with them. That gives a lot of confidence for their students, right? Now, if you particularly talk about roles of school, you know. What steps or programs does academic, world school has in place to promote positive peer interactions and mitigating the effects of negative influence?
So you see, it's quite interesting actually to understand peer behavior and adolescent behavior. So
Mhm.
as I said, it has to be obviously a buy-in between the parents and the school and the peers. So we need to create a system within the schools and outside the schools where, number one, every young boy or girl who is going through the adolescent stage feels wanted,
Mhm.
feels that they are a part of the society. They feel that there is that one individual who is going to listen to them
Mhm.
as and when they have an issue to discuss. Because most of the times when I go around and interact with teens quite a bit, and
Mhm.
most of the times when there is an issue, there is a problem, there are cases of peer pressure and negative impact, as we've been discussing.
Mhm.
Most of the time it comes out that the snowballing effect has happened because of the lack of an adult individual to whom or with whom that particular individual can share what has happened. Because mm, teens nowadays feel that adults do not listen to them. Teens
Okay.
nowadays, teens nowadays feel that parents do not listen to them. Parents are simply passing orders. Teens nowadays
Mhm.
feel that schools and teachers don't listen to them and they are simply passing orders, which is, I think, to a large extent true also, because I do interact with a whole lot of parents. I do interact with a lot of teachers. And this is what I tell my teachers and parents both. We as adults may not be able to provide an immediate solution to these problems at times, because these are complex issues. They deal with relationships most of the
Right.
times. But
Right.
I think 90% of the situations gets handled as long
Mhm.
as we are able to listen without interrupting to
Mhm.
what the teen has to say. Because
Right.
once, and that's again out of experience, that if I'm able to listen to the teen who has come to talk to me, and I
Mhm.
listen to him or her without interrupting in between for 10-15 minutes or whatever the duration is, I think
Right.
it's the venting that needs to be done. So once the venting
Okay.
of the entire issue has been done, that makes a lot of sense to that individual, because there is somebody to whom the pressure has been communicated.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
parents, of course, need to practice this at home, but it becomes all the more important in schools. So what we have done in our school is that we have kind of tried to create a pastoral care system in the school, where
Mhm.
individual adults in the school, the teachers and the wardens of the school, they are provided with a group of students which is the same
Okay.
year group. So every
Mhm.
individual is given about, say, 15 to 20 boys and girls. It's a mixture of boys and girls. And
Mhm.
we try to see that they meet at least once a week, so that they could discuss things which are interest to the group at times, which are of
Okay.
interest to the individual and to the teacher at times. And then
Mhm.
these teachers and educators, they are also trained in handling
Mhm.
these issues. So we have a training system in the school. We have a pastoral care system in the school. We have a professional development system in the school, where we get experts from outside, who train our teachers on handling issues. And we do that on a very regular basis. We have a larger faculty development program every year, which is a 5-day faculty development program, which deals with other issues as well, but
Okay.
particularly handling teenagers, and how to provide pastoral care.
Mhm.
That's how we provide professional development to our educators in the school.
Mm-hmm.
And this is having an impact, because as I said, the first stage is we need to listen.
Listen.
Once, because I mean, we all have grown up in different eras, and the era is different now. In when I went to school, I do remember uh, tight one was, the solution to most of our problems, and we did not we did not feel bad about it, because
Correct.
probably that was the norm of that time. But today, the individuals that we are dealing with, they
Mm-hmm.
are much more emotionally strong, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, because there is a lot of talk about emotional quotient, and
Right.
all these things. They see various things on the media every day, so their thought
Right.
process is much more different. They have a lot
Mm.
to think about. They have a lot of information to process, which was not
Correct.
there in our times. We had very little information, and unfortunately, one of the things which has happened is, when we were young, we were going out in the
Mm-hmm.
outdoors almost every day, and we were playing sometimes organized games, sometimes not so organized games, but the
Mm-hmm.
connect with the outdoors was much more
Much more.
than what it is today. In fact, our entertainment was outdoors only. Once we were inside the home, the only entertainment was a few minutes of TV, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
that too with
That too
parents. So there
limited.
was,
Yeah.
and that too limited, and that too with parents. So most of the times we were watching something which was of national interest, or something
Mm-hmm.
which is of social interest or what. But today, the most of the teens have these handheld devices, so
Right.
it's difficult to control. Of course, we have a system in the school to control these things, but you can understand that the teens are much smarter, so it is difficult to control all the time what they are
Right.
watching. So
Right.
I think that's one way. So we need to do this, and the other way is to increase the time and the space for sports and activities in the schools, I think. And boarding schools do have much more time in their hands, so we
Correct.
need to have bring the teens out to the football ground, or to the cricket ground, so that they exercise their limbs
Mm-hmm.
on cricket bats and hockey sticks and footballs, rather than just exercising their fingers on a touch screen. So that's
Correct.
something that the schools need to think about, and parents
Right.
should also encourage
Yeah. So my
their
next
children
next
to play in the outdoors, because that is what is
correct.
missing in the system now.
Correct. 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 So my next question is around that only. That what advice would you offer to parents? On fostering a home environment that encourages teens to make wise choices in their peer relationships.
I think one of the biggest advice that I want to make to the parents is, number one,
Mm.
trust your children,
Okay.
because your children are the ones who can judge themselves better than you. Because
Okay.
I can judge myself, nobody else can judge me, and the same applies to children as well. I think the first thing the parents need to do is, they need to trust their children, because
Okay.
the it's I wherever there is a relationship, I think we should always base that relationship on trust. The point that
Mm-hmm.
trust has been broken, so I think
Mm-hmm.
there's no harm in parents trusting their children. Of course, you have to keep an eye on your children and all that. That's fine. As a parent, you will do your parenting, right? So
Correct.
that's one thing. The second thing is, listen to your students, to your children. You need to listen to them, because every child is different. Even if you have two children at home, the two are different individuals. Even if they are twins, they are different individuals. They grow very
Right. Right.
differently. Their requirements are very different. And what my requirement as a child was, that definitely is not the requirement of my son or my daughter right now, because they are growing up in a very, very different environment.
Right.
That's one thing. These are two basic things that
Basic.
parents need to understand. The
Mm-hmm.
third thing that they need to understand is, what was right for me as a kid when I was growing up
Mm-hmm.
may not one be true right now, and that may not be the situation. Actually, the situation may be completely different. So I it takes me back to a book that I read a few years ago. There is this individual, this NRI lady who lives in the US, I think so, Dr. Shimi Kang. She has
Okay.
actually written a book which is called Dolphin Parenting. So, dolphin parenting is a very, very interesting concept. The dolphin parenting is, it takes the idea from how a dolphin parents a children, right? So,
Okay.
dolphin parenting basically means, you let your children do whatever they want to do, but at the same time provide soft guidelines to your children, and
Okay.
see in soft and see in soft manners that they conform to those guidelines. So that takes care of your uh, societal norms as well. That takes care of your family norms as well, because I understand families will have certain norms. Families are,
Hmm.
as individuals are different, families are also different, and there's no harm in parents actually expecting their children to follow the family norms. But I think there are softer ways to do that rather than waving this stick and telling them to follow a norm. We need to again, as I said, softly and knowingly, we need to create a buy-in among children for the societal norms, for the family norms, and they will also understand that there are
Hmm.
certain things that need to be followed when we live in a society. Because I mean, whilst keeping long hair does not really mean anything good or bad, but
Okay.
one is not allowed to keep long hair in the school. I'm talking about a boy. Girls, of course, are,
We're
right?
correct.
So that's a norm. They have to
Hmm.
conform to those norms. So we
Hmm.
have to create a buy-in for that, and we have to tell them that when you grow up, maybe when you pass on to college, and at a, when you are at an age where you can get into fashionable dressing and all that, you can keep long hair at that point of time. So that's not
Okay.
necessarily a wrong thing to do, but it's not the
Hmm.
right thing to do at this point of time. So those kind
Right.
of logics, those kind of arguments, if we are able to create with our children.
Hmm.
And the second thing is, we should always encourage our children to speak.
Right.
If they are putting a resistance to something at home, there is a reason behind it. It may be right or wrong, whatever it is, but I think as parents, we must listen to them, and we must
Hmm.
see that if we are arguing with them, we must see that the logic that we are putting in front of them, we it
Hmm.
is substantiated, and the children really buy into that logic. Then only, as parents, and the same applies to schools, heads of schools
Correct.
or teachers or educators. I think
Hmm.
it's all about talking to them. It's all about giving them that space, and
Hmm.
it's yeah, that's what it is about. Yeah.
That is true. That is true. So having an open communication is a key in terms of,
Absolutely, absolutely, yes,
and you need to trust your kids, your teens. They are experiencing a lot of new
yes,
things. They are exploring,
yeah.
their world around. In the
Also, parents need,
process,
yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
So
Also,
sorry.
parents need to
Yes.
understand that the current generation, the generation just before this, and the generations after this,
Hmm.
performance pressure is increasing day by day, because
Yes.
expectations are increasing day by day. Things are changing,
Hmm. Right.
and it is going to have, and it is actually having an impact. And if
Hmm.
we as adults do not support our students, do not support our children, who is going to do that? So the
Correct.
responsibility lies truly on the students, to some
Hmm.
extent, of course, but more of it lies on parents and schools. And parents and schools are one. Parents and schools can never be different. Parents and schools have to grow together, have to go together, and have to walk together in the
Correct.
this entire process of growing up of children.
Correct. Correct. Great, sir. It's thanks a lot for sharing your valuable insight on navigating this, influence of peer groups in academics. Your expertise has shed light on the importance of understanding peer dynamics, and guiding teams towards positive academic support. To all parents tuned in, remember that your role is crucial in helping your teens make a wise choice by staying connected, encouraging open conversation, and reinforcing the values of positive influence. You can empower them to thrive both socially and academically. Thank you for joining. And I really want to thank Joshi sir for taking out your time
Thanks,
and
Rajesh.
helping.
Thanks for inviting me here. Thanks for having me
Uh,
here. It was
it
really a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thank you, sir. Looking forward to, more of interactions very
Absolutely.
soon.
Yes. Yes. Same here. Yes. We will definitely.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Thank you.